Shri, opulence, Kirti, fame, Aishvaryam, power, Asisaha, benedictions, Purusasya, of the living entity, Ya, which, Bhavanti, arise, Eva, indeed, he, certainly, Tatkale, at the proper time, Yata, just as, Anicho, of one not desiring, Viparyayaha, reverse conditions. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Just as a person not inclined to die must nonetheless give up his longevity, opulence, fame, and everything else at the time of death, so at the appointed time of victory, one can gain all these when the Supreme Lord awards them by his mercy. Just as a person not inclined to die must nonetheless give up his longevity, opulence, fame, and everything else at the time of death, so at the appointed time of victory, one can gain all these when the Supreme Lord awards them by his mercy. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is not good to be falsely puffed up, saying that by one's own effort, one has become opulent, learned, beautiful, and so on. All such good fortune is achieved through the mercy of the Lord. From another point of view, no one wants to die, and no one wants to be poor or ugly. Therefore, why does the living entity, against his will, receive such unwanted troubles? It is due to the mercy or chastisement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that one gains or loses everything material. No one is independent. Everyone is dependent on the mercy or chastisement of the Supreme Lord. There is a common saying in Bengal that the Lord has 10 hands. This means that he has control everywhere, in the 8 directions and up and down. If he wants to take everything away from us with his 10 hands, we cannot protect anything with our 2 hands. Similarly, if he wants to bestow benedictions upon us with his 10 hands, we cannot factually receive them with our 2 hands. In other words, the benedictions exceed our ambitions. The conclusion is that even though we do not wish to be separated from our possessions, sometimes the Lord forcibly takes them from us, and sometimes he showers such benedictions upon us that we are unable to receive them all. Therefore, either in opulence or in distress, we are not independent. Everything is dependent on the sweet will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Gyana Timrayasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmitam Yana Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Panchakapaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhurevacha Patitanama Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasti Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So welcome, dear devotees. Thank you for coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class once again. So of course, we all understand and we all know very well that the Srimad Bhagavatam is a very beautiful time.
Sorry, I don't understand.
He doesn't agree. Yes, it is definitely a very beautiful time for us to have this Sangha together. And of course, for all the scholars in our midst here this morning, the Bhagavatam, of course, presents ideas that sometimes seem contradictory. But, there's always so many wonderful lessons we can learn from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this particular chapter that we're reading is one such chapter. Who is speaking? Of course, it is the big demon Vitrasura. But what is Vitrasura doing? He is currently in battle, so it's on a battlefield that he's giving these words, and he's giving this very nice motivation currently that we are reading to Lord Indra. So he has already struck Lord Indra. The weapon that is meant to kill him has fallen from Indra's hand, and he's giving now a very nice motivational speech to Indra that, don't lose faith, pick up the weapon and fight, because, Indra was, of course, taken aback. He didn't realize that, as the king of heaven, such a powerful personality, of course, when he started out with the weapon in his hand, he was seeming so glorious, but now he's, just fallen off his chariot, Airavata, and so now this demon, Vitrasura, is, giving him a motivational speech and trying to encourage him that, this is no time to lose composure, lose faith, pick up your weapon. So, of course, Vitrasura is, in one sense, acting a little out of character because he's meant to be a demon. But still, Vitrasura, we understand in his previous life, he was Triketu, King Triketu, and, a very amazing devotee. So somehow, by the Lord's, of course, arrangement, he is able to remember all of these things. And basically what's happening now is that Vitrasura is doing his duty. So his duty is to fight. He realizes that, he will be killed, and this is why he's giving this motivational speech. And he's encouraging Indra, please, kill me, because he knows that his destination is to go back home, back to Godhead. And so he's very enthusiastic to go back home, back to Godhead. And so we can, learn so many wonderful things in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Elsewhere we find, of course, the great devotees of the Lord, like Prahlad Maharaj, another demon, born in a demon family, another great devotee, of course, but born in a demon family. So these things, in everyday material life, it seems very out of the ordinary that, if there's friends and enemies, why would your enemy assist to killing him? So in this way, Srimad Bhagavatam takes us kind of like out of the realm. So nevertheless, we see in this particular purport, Prabhupada is saying that, or the purport itself, the verse itself is saying that just as a person not inclined to die must nonetheless give up his longevity, opulence, and fame, and everything else at the time of death. So we all understand that at the time of the death, there's nothing that we can take with us. No matter how super rich we are, how many billions of dollars we have in our bank account, nothing can be taken with us. So Vitrasura is saying, at the appointed time of victory, one can gain all these when the Supreme Lord awards them by his mercy. So we understand, there is, of course, this classic phrase that not a blade of grass moves without the Lord's sanction. I think I heard one devotee mention that that particular phrase doesn't appear anywhere in the Vedic scriptures. It's actually something from the biblical scriptures. That's what I heard. But nevertheless, a very true statement, if we can try to understand it and, imbibe it in our lives, that nothing goes on without the sanction of the Supreme Lord. Of course, we're in the material world undergoing a material experience, but we understand we're originally spirit soul, and, we're out of our original home. Having the association of Supreme Personality of Godhead back in Goloka Vrindavan. So somehow or the other, due to mainly envious of Krishna, that we have fallen down into the material world. And now, we're suffering the trials and tribulations of material life. So regarding this, verse and purport, the immediate example that came to my mind was, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, expressed that his desire was to spread Krishna consciousness as a very, very rich man. But, for those of us that are familiar with Prabhupada's life and teachings, know that, Srila Prabhupada was a businessman initially in his early years, grew up in a Krishna conscious household, but still, despite, his business and his wealth at the time, gradually, that was not meant to be. And so, eventually Prabhupada had renounced everything and was just, preaching Krishna consciousness throughout the places that he lived. And eventually we understand that Srila Prabhupada came to the West with only, 47 rupees. So, he was practically penniless, didn't have, anything. So, of course, Prabhupada cites that, this was the arrangement of the Lord. There's, no uncertainty in that it was the arrangement of the Lord that, he came to the USA, not knowing, exactly the situation he will be in terms of his living arrangements, in terms of, his day-to-day maintenance. Where is it going to come from? So Srila Prabhupada, of course, we see, he trusted that the Supreme Lord somehow or the other will make arrangements for whatever has to be achieved. And we understand that there is that classic prayer Prabhupada was making to Lord Krishna, that, I don't know why you have brought me here to the West, so far away from so-called home, India, but make me dance. And of course, now we are all reaping the benefits of all of Prabhupada's sacrifices, that at a very advanced age, he came to the West to give us this priceless jewels and knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Then, of course, there is some nice verses in the Bhagavad Gita, 7:10. O son of Prita, know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. So again, Krishna is asserting that, he is the original seed-giving father and the intelligence of the intelligent. And then he goes on in those, verses explaining how he is the primeval Lord. And he is the prime eternal among all eternals. So we understand also from Bhagavad Gita that we are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and we are very, very small and minute. And of course, some description is given of the size of the living entity, 1/10,000th, the tip of a hair. So we can, try to understand how minuscule we are. But yet, at the same time, we understand that in terms of quality, we have the same qualities as the Supreme Lord, but in quantity, very, very minute and minuscule. So then I was remembering this example that's given in somewhere in the Vedas about how there was once a sage, and he had some disciples with him. And then when they went past some village, then a prince had approached the sage for some blessings. And then we understand that the blessings that the sadhu had given, sage had given to the prince was Rajaputra Chiram Jiva. So he said that you should live forever. And then next, when he saw the brahmachari, disciple of the spiritual master, he said, Ma Jiva Muni Putraka, that you are the disciple of a saintly person. You do not live, you do not die. And then he came across the sadhu, who also came for blessings. And he said to the sadhu, my dear saintly person, you live or you die as you like. And then finally, of course, the butcher came. And for the butcher, he said, ma jiva ma mare iti. You neither live nor die. So, of course, what's the purport? The disciples were a little confused, what kind of blessings is this, to all these different personalities? Why is it so different for each one of them? And so we understand the significance in these different situations, that for the prince, he was just enjoying his senses to the max. And so because, he is continuing to enjoy in this way, he's just accumulating so much of karma from all these, experiences. So the blessing that he got was, in your next life, it's going to be very, very horrible. So in that case, you better live forever, because, so much of suffering awaits you. Then for the brahmachari, of course, he was performing, so much of austerities and, undergoing penance, fasting, in one sense, according to material standards, not living a very, very comfortable life. So he was blessed that you should die immediately. Because by his pious activities, he was, gradually trying to elevate himself. And so the sooner that he dies, the better, so that he can go to Vaikuntha. Then we see for the sadhu, the blessing was jiva va mare va, that either you live or die. That because you are serving Krishna in this life so successfully, when you die, you will, of course, continue to serve in the same way. So because of that, you either live or die, really doesn't matter, because you're constantly going to be engaged in the service, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So it's all the same. And of course, the butcher, he got the blessing, don't live and don't die. Because currently in his condition of slaughtering so much of animals on a daily basis, he is, of course, in such a hellish condition by, slaughtering all these animals. But at the same time, if he dies, or when he dies, he's also going to be going to hell, and the suffering is going to continue. So in this way, he got the blessing, don't live, don't die. So that was another example I had thought of. So of course, from Bhagavad Gita 15:15, we understand that from me comes remembrance and forgetfulness. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So this one is a little bit difficult for us sometimes to understand. Of course, I've got a real Kali Yuga memory, can't remember much of anything. And from time to time, some glimpses may come. But I am trying my best to remember whatever I read and hear from, advanced devotees. But sometimes it is very, very difficult. Still, we should persevere. But always remember that, this remembrance and forgetfulness is coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then I was thinking of the example of, the sincere disciple who was blind. And, we understand in that scenario, his spiritual master had given him the instruction to, read the Shastra, read the Bhagavad Gita. And even in his blind condition, he was still trying to read. But of course, he got so much blessings. Where was that? In the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And we read a few verses prior how, we're undergoing this material experience. But most times, most of us are taking credit, for all that we accomplish in this material world. But we understood from this few verses ago that, I guess, Bhagavad Gita 3:27 very nicely gives this point that the spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of the false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So somehow we're in this illusion thinking that I am the doer of activities. This is, lifetimes and lifetimes of conditioning that we have that makes us think in this way, that we are actually the doer. But if we had some common sense, then we'll pick up the Bhagavad Gita and start to read and understand that, we are actually not the doer of activities. So, of course, we can take it both ways, that, when something good happens, we generally say that we are, we become puffed up, like, today's verse is saying, don't be puffed up, thinking that, we are the doer of activities. So that's the first thing. But then the other side might also be true, that some of us start to think, well, if the material energy is the doer, then, I should just go outside without any warm clothes, and, let Krishna and the material energy protect me. So, this is misapplication of the philosophy. Of course, we're all have minute independence, and we need to use that independence that we have thoughtfully. We need to use our intelligence given by Krishna intelligently. So, we shouldn't do foolish things like this to challenge, the supremacy and authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I heard there was one nice example illustrating this point, that, there was a devotee, and as devotees, we're always trying to find interesting ways. Our minds are so confused, at least my mind is so confused, that, I'm always trying to find challenging ways to deny the authority of, well, the material energy, and of course, ultimately Krishna, who is controlling the material energy. And so then this person was thinking that, okay, I can accept, this devotee was thinking, or let's say Dhruva Maharaj Das, he was thinking, okay, I can accept that, Krishna is sending forth the rains, and the rains are falling, and grains are growing, and we're harvesting the grains, and, making delicious prasadam, and, so I can acknowledge that, yes, Krishna is in charge in that respect. But when I have to fast, Krishna can't force feed me. So, we have nice fasting days, Ekadasis, and, other holy days that we have to fast. And so, I cannot be force fed. So this person was thinking like this, or Dhruva was thinking like this, I cannot be force fed, because, what are you saying? Krishna is the controller. Well, he can't really, force me to eat. So then, as part of this austerity, what this devotee did was he decided to fast. And so he goes to a secluded place, and he decides to perch himself on a tree, and he's fasting. And so, of course, he's in some holy place. And so some holy sadhus or saintly people go by, and they decide to stop underneath the tree for prasadam. And so it so happens it's Gujarati devotees. So, Gujaratis, they don't have one or two simple preparations. It's not just khichdi, there's a whole spread. So, of course, this person is sitting on the tree and fasting, and he has to witness, all these devotees relishing this prasadam. And so then, he's still trying to be true to his vow that, nobody can force me to eat. So then suddenly there's the sound of horses coming. And so then these devotees realized that these are the dacoits, they're coming on horses. So they quickly left everything and they ran away. To run away, they realized the dacoits are coming. They come on horses, and so they ran away. So when they ran away, the dacoits, of course, stopped them. Okay. Wow, look at this. So much of nice food stuff to eat. But then one of them was a very smart dacoit. He thought that, well, hold on. Let's not just start to eat quickly, because why is it that, there's so many preparations just lying here? It might all be poisoned. Somebody wants to steal whatever we have, and they put poison in the food and they left it for us to eat. And so let's not eat. And actually, that person must be here close by somewhere, waiting for us to die, eat, and die in this way. He can plunder all our wealth. So let's quickly try to find him. And so, of course, they didn't have to look far. They looked up, and of course, this Dhruva is sitting in the tree there. He's fasting, of course. And so they ask him to come down, and of course, he refuses, but they forcibly drag him down. And so they explain, why have you put all this food? What kind of poison have you put? And why are you trying to poison us and steal from us? And he denied, no, I didn't do anything. He explained the situation. There was some devotees going by, and because you guys came and they didn't buy the story. And so at knife point, they threatened him, we'll cut your throat right now. You better taste. If you say there's no poison, you better eat. And so, of course, it was life and death situation. He had to surrender and break his fast. So the moral of the story was that, of course, Krishna is in full control, and he was trying to exercise his independence, but, inappropriately. So we can understand that, Krishna is in control of everything, and we shouldn't try to challenge that kind of authority. Another example I thought of in my travels this morning was the example, let's see if I can say this pastime that's kind of like related to this verse. One time there was a saintly person. He was visiting a king, and this king wasn't, such a dharmic king. And, he was full of himself, very, very puffed up with his wealth and, kingdom and everything else to go with it. So a very, very puffed up king. And so he presented himself as a fortune teller, that, the astrologer, he can tell the future. And so, of course, in India, it's very, very common. There's many, many astrologers. Everybody is practically an astrologer of some sort. And so in this way, he pretended to be an astrologer. And so, of course, the king was very, very curious. Yes, please tell me about my future. And so then the astrologer started to tell him that, well, the good news is that, no, the bad news. The bad news is that you're going to die very soon. Okay. And before you can say anything else, but there's good news. The good news is that you're going to go to heaven. Oh, okay. Yeah, tell me more. It says when you get to heaven, the bad news is that you're going to be in such a place in heaven that there's a lot of mosquitoes, deadly mosquitoes, that when they bite you, you will die, even in heaven. So, okay. But the good news is that they have mosquito nets. So, seems okay still, So he says, okay, tell me more. So he says, the bad news is that that particular net that's assigned to you when you go to heaven, it has a hole in it. The mosquitoes can all get into that mosquito net and still bite you. But the good news is that there is thread in heaven, so it can be stitched. Says, okay, tell me more. He says, but now the only dilemma is that I can see is that there's no needles in heaven. So you make sure, Mr. King, when you die, that you take a needle with you because you're going to need it in heaven to stitch this hole in the mosquito net. The King thought for a moment. And was like, oh, hold on. Can you tell me how, when I die, I can't take anything with me? All my riches, all my wealth, I can't take. Can you tell me how I can take a needle with me? And so, of course, the moral of the story was, then the king also realized, because he asked for an explanation, and then the sadhu explained that, yes, this is the point. You're so puffed up with your opulence, you're going to take nothing. You can't even take a small item like a needle with you. And so, this puffed up mentality doesn't, get anywhere. We just accumulate more and more karma. And, most times it's negative karma. And, we have to continue in the cycle of birth and death in this material existence. So in the purport, Prabhupada is also explaining that the conclusion is that we do not wish to be separated from our possessions. Sometimes the Lord forcibly takes them away from us. And, as far as control, what can we control? According to modern science, they say there's 4 directions, but according to the Vedas, we understand that there's 8 principal directions: east, west, north, south, northeast, northwest, and there's 8 directions. And of course, there's 2 more, up and down as well. So, Prabhupada is pointing out in the purport that if the Lord wants to take everything away from us with his 10 hands, the analogy is there, 10 directions, we cannot protect anything with our 2 simple hands. And similarly, if he wants to bestow benedictions to us with these 10 hands, we cannot factually receive them with our 2 hands. And in this regard, I was thinking of the example of Sudama Brahman, that, when his wife had requested, we are in such a poverty-stricken situation, why don't you go and visit your friend, Krishna? But, he was, of course, so humble, so poor. He very reluctantly went, to see his friend Krishna. And of course, he took with him this broken chipped rice. And he was very embarrassed even to offer it. But we see in that pastime that, Krishna was so ecstatic to see him. And then we understand from that pastime, when he went back home, he was just in opulence loka, such great opulence. Who was the other example I was thinking? Oh, Dhruva Maharaj Das. Of course, we understand, King Dhruva, he also initially wanted a kingdom bigger than his father's kingdom, because of his stepmother. She deprived him of sitting on his father's lap. So we know the pastime. That eventually, as he traveled through so many different situations, Dhruva, when he eventually, met Krishna face to face, he didn't want anything, absolutely nothing. He didn't want a kingdom. But still, Krishna gave him the whole star planet to rule over. So, Krishna can do anything. He can give us, and he can take also, as is needed, according to our karma, according to our surrender. There's so many factors that contribute. But what should be our position? Our position needs to be Trinadapi Sunichena Taroraviseshnana Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. That we need to be more humble than a blade of grass. So, this should be our mood, and our mood should be to cultivate our service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And, what is our real wealth? All of these material possessions we have, we cannot take with us, just end up getting puffed up by, any signs of wealth. But the proper mood that we need to cultivate is one of humility. Our real wealth is our devotional service. And so we should not take that for granted. Because, everything else, is very, very temporary in the material world. I was also thinking of the example, as human beings, we're the only species on the planet that is always very, very greedy. This greed is also, a severe anartha that we have. And I was thinking of the example of if there is a bag of grain lying in the street, all the birds and animals, they'll come and eat their quota. And so I was remembering the verse from the Sri Upanishad, Savasya Idam Sarvam, that, from all the other species, they'll take their quota and they'll leave. But when a human being goes by, he will grab the entire bag and take it away. So this is how selfish, we have become. So all these layers of conditioning, definitely we need to practice and learn how to shed these many layers. So we understand that by chanting this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This can ground us that as we, perform devotional service, yes, devotional service is very, very tasty, very, very nice, but, we can still get carried away and not make so much advancement if we don't have the proper mood and attitude in executing our devotional service. So it's one thing to do service, but then it's another thing in terms of our sincerity and mood that we do the service. So sometimes we get a little, again, unfortunately, puffed up, thinking that I am doing so much of service, I am doing this, I am doing that. But of course, we just cited some verses that we are not the doers of, all our activities. So don't get puffed up that, I am doing so much of service. So by, Prabhupada giving us this formula of associating with devotees and also chanting this Maha Mantra, 16 rounds minimum, we can ground ourselves and understand, a little better that we are not the doer of activities, that Krishna is the ultimate doer. So we need to stay grounded in our chanting. Krishna is not so interested, in all these big buildings, that we may have helped put up. What's he interested in? He's interested in our love. This is what, counts at the end of the day. So as we, associate with each other, we want to, do it in a genuine way where we are caring for each other, doing it in the mood of love and service to each other and to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we understand that, by gratifying our own senses, it's not a workable solution. So many persons have tried it in the past, and they all eventually ended up, dying and taking nothing with them. So we want to study, read, and understand. And we've understood, for those of us that have been around devotees in Krishna consciousness, attending Bhagavatam classes, listening to lectures, that one of the secrets is to gratify the senses of Krishna. So we need to figure out ways and means to be able to gratify Krishna's senses. And in this way, by gratifying Krishna's senses, we don't get entangled so much in material activities. And, like Krishna was telling Arjuna on the battlefield, that, Arjuna was giving all these reasons that, I don't want to kill my family members. I don't want to kill so many people. I just want to go to the forest. But Krishna was saying, if you just do your duty, then you don't incur sin, you don't incur karma in one sense. And we see in the example of Vitrasura here, in these, chapters that we are reading about Vitrasura, this, big, powerful demon, that what's he doing? When he started out even fighting with Indra, he fought with such force, such a powerful demon that, he was even able to, with his trident, knock Lord Indra off his chariot. And even, his weapon fell off his hand as well. So such a powerful demon. But we can see that, all these words that Vitrasura is offering to Indra, to tell it, I guess he was following Kshatriya code as well. He just didn't attack him when he was, fallen off his chariot and didn't have a weapon in hand. He was encouraging him, pick up the weapon and fight. So we see even in Vitrasura, even though he is, a demon, what's he doing? He's just doing his duty. So this principle of do your duty. So we, as living entities in the material world, we also all have a duty of, serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And of course, we understand that the best service we can do in this world is by serving devotees. And in this way, we can win the favor of Krishna. So I'll stop there. Any comments, questions, additions? Anything I said incorrectly, please correct me.
Thank you so much for a wonderful class.
Hare Krishna.
I'm enchanted by your wonderful conclusion that you summarized so beautifully. That Krishna doesn't need anything material, buildings, wealth, whatever, but he's expecting proper mood and attitude as you mentioned. He's expecting love. It reminds me what our Guru Maharaj was telling us in the very beginning to train us in Krishna consciousness. You need to always remember why you're doing what you're doing. If we remember this simple maximum, which for me in that time sounds so profound, my goodness, I should remember what I'm doing, why I'm doing what I'm doing, why? And when I start to analyze why I'm doing these things, so then ultimately lead to this statement that you mentioned. It's up to our attitude, our mood, how we want to satisfy Krishna, how we can offer a loving service to the devotees and Krishna.
Thank you. Prabhuji. I'll just quickly recite one more verse. I think I said it before, but now I stumbled upon it again. It is, so this is a quote from Sri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. It is more beneficial to cultivate fields and water plants for the service of the Vaishnavas than to inattentively pull weeds hundreds and thousands of times. The result of serving the Vaishnavas is genuine taste for the holy name. Very nice.
Or to speak about serving Vaishnava and Shem.
Right, ecstatic. So, Hare Krishna. Okay. No trick questions allowed.
I was wondering about this point of you're saying something about being proud that we're doing so much service and like this mood that we can develop sometimes in that population together. And I was also wondering, there's this like thing that's come up, which like seems to be quite trendy with devotees at the moment, about oh, you have needs for something, then you should satisfy your needs on your own. So like kind of don't put your needs on me, like don't expect me to fulfill your needs and your needs you can satisfy by yourself. And then I've also heard that the Rachel often quotes, often says we should have like a mood of appreciating devotees, and let's try and appreciate devotees and like recognize them with their services they're doing and things like that. So I was just wondering how to find a balance between all three of these things, like appreciating devotees, being appreciated by devotees, not becoming proud of our services, like what we're doing, but then also like satisfying a need to feel needed.
Yes, so very nice question. And, you know, of course, we have this amazing philosophy of Achinta Bheda Tattva, that there's simultaneous oneness and difference. So my thought, you know, other devotees can please share their thoughts and realizations on this. But my thought on that point is that if we, you know, approach that dilemma, so to speak, you know, in a sincere, humble mood, I think all of them can be satisfied simultaneously. Seems a little contradictory, or it seems like how to find the balance. But I think if one is, you know, we read about prayer, sometimes we might have to pray about it too, that yes, so much advice is coming from our spiritual master and the Shastra. But I think each one of them is able to feed each other and satisfy each other. So this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness, that if we're, of course, chanting sincerely, trying to associate with devotees, in a very sincere way as well, then everything can get satisfied. Of course, Bhagavad Gita is very, very clear that, sometimes devotees want to perform unnecessary tapasya, austerities, but I forget the exact verse. But if one eats too much, if one eats too little, sleeps too much, sleeps too little, somehow all these things need to be balanced. And, this is Krishna consciousness, that somehow we have to find this balance. But if we are endeavoring sincerely, I think other devotees will help us in this endeavor. And I think one important thing we can always try to factor in is that, and I'm trying to learn from Nagari Krishna actually, that, he often talks about, being a well-wisher. He's always, of course, grateful, for his well wishes in his life. And so I've been meditating on that lately as well, that, we should all be grateful for devotees around us, who are our well wishers as well. Sometimes it's hard for us to see, someone that might be our well wisher. But if we have this constant mood, then, we can try to find some balance. Please, other devotees, share some thoughts and realizations on it. Nice question.
I remember the pastimes that was related to writing the cerebral books. I remember when he was Srila Prabhupada came to one temple she was staying, and he was just, I think, new word about it at the time. And he got service in the kitchen to cook for all the devotees who gathered for the special retreat. So he was there basically in the kitchen 24/7, just cooking all the prasadam for all the devotees there. And he never saw Srila Prabhupada, he never attended the lectures, and he was feeling a little bit lamentation that, everybody's came and Srila Prabhupada is in person, in classes, and I'm in the kitchen, but he didn't feel like bad about it. It was more like spiritual longing, but he was making this outstanding prasadam. And then there was, I think, the day when Srila Prabhupada was supposed to depart, and he still didn't really have any association with Srila Prabhupada directly. And he was called by one of Srila Prabhupada's servants at the time, and then they told him, Srila Prabhupada needs a servant to travel with him. Would you go?
Wow.
So I was just reflecting on how, when you were saying that Krishna is the doer, that his attitude of offering his love and service to the devotees was reciprocated with something that, he was not even dreaming about. And he got so much associated with Srila Prabhupada. He was Srila Prabhupada for a few years.
I add few details to this story that Srila Prabhupada actually know about Shukakiri Prabhu, who is in the kitchen. He asked this devotee who was temple president, some type of authority for administration of this place, and asked who is doing this. Shukakiri, and the Prabhupada was very, very full of appreciation for this excellent prasadam that devotees we should be chanting every morning. This shloka that good spiritual master is satisfied when he sees that all the disciples are satisfied with Krishna Prasad. So Srila Prabhupada was very satisfied, and this was the end. When Srila Prabhupada left, and Shukakiri was down that he has no even possibility to see Srila Prabhupada face to face, but he was so close. And then he got this message: Srila Prabhupada want you to go as a personal servant.
Very well. So the altar will open just now. I was thinking that if at least for all the devotees at the temple, at 2:00, we can continue part 2 of the mood of a devotee and sincerity and how to take things to the next level. So Surapal and Krishnamai Prabhus will be hosting a class, seminar, courses called Next Level Bhakti at 2 a.m. in the loft, 2 p.m. 2 a.m. All right. You see, that's next level. Okay, so I'm still asleep and thinking I have to leave at 2 a.m. So 2 p.m., please. Let's make it mandatory for everyone to be there. I see Dr. Ryan is missing from class today. He's still resting. Yeah, so 2 p.m. mandatory for all residents to please come and get each other's association, and of course these saintly Vaishnavas as well, so we can churn more nectar. Anyone else has any comments, questions? Okay, there goes the conch. Please, devotees, if you want to continue sharing on this verse, please continue. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
To, что Шишина вечора на это. Бхактивиданта Свами, Шрила Прабхупад, Шрила Прабхупад, Шрила Прабхупад, О, Пранамди, all of us, Yes, Lord.